Tony D and Little Joan with, well, I guess you could call this kind of a response video. Not really on the Carl thing, although I just wanted to say I got a little pushback on the Carl video. Not much, but I was making the pitch for more liberty in the UK, I think, and now Carl has come up with Tony Blair makes his pitch for digital ID, and he's very liberty minded in this. So yes, Carl, I totally agree with this video 100%. You cannot have this digital ID. You have to draw a line in the sand there, or else it'll get really, really bad. So Godspeed, Carl. But of course, what I really need to talk about is TV shows and movies, because that's what I do. And our old friend Ham had some great comments, so I thought I'd share them with you and talk about them a little bit. This is on my Screenwriter's Rant about the degradation of superheroes. So he points out also the original Wonder Man looking like AI. It's been confirmed that this real artwork has been slapped with an AI filter. Okay. Not sure why Disney would do that, because I think the show or the movie is supposed to be older, so it's weird. It's weird. But here's what Ham says about Wonder Man and some of the stuff. He has a lot to say. There's a number of factors and issues at play Wonder Man. One, this character is important to the overall story of Scarlet Witch and Vision going into Doomsday and Secret Wars. Simon Williams' brainwaves were used as the basis for Vision, the robot, and that he is essential to his reformation, which will be shown in the announced Vision Quest series. That's weird, because the character, as it appears in the MCU, seems so far removed from the version in Marvel Comics, right? Like in Marvel Comics, it made more sense, although it's very convoluted superhero continuity. But, he, at that point in the comics, Simon Williams either was in the Avengers, or at that point he was comatose, but they had a copy of his brainwaves, I think. Yeah, I think he was out of it, but they used the Hank Pym had saved his brainwaves for some reason, and he used that to help build Vision. I'm not sure how they're going to work that in the Vision series. I'm not sure why anybody would care. Why would anybody care? It's a weird thing. Number two, they are way behind on the curve on this stuff thanks to COVID, the strikes, and having to replan the phases thanks to Jonathan Majors incident. So now they are rushing stuff out of nowhere and dumping stuff that was on the shelf, like the show Ironheart and Echo. Yeah, but I say to that, I don't care. Disney has billions and billions of dollars. They still have tons and tons of money. You could shoot something with the kind of money they have. They have sound stages. Even if they just went back and shot some kind of talk show that would be easy to do, they could shoot in a couple of weeks just to fill up the time slot and connect it to the Marvel U. That would have been better, I think, than releasing Echo and Ironheart, which are abominable shows, in my view. Now, I've only seen clips and seen all the hubbub around it, but they look terrible. They sound terrible. And it would have been better to keep them out of the mix, because now what has happened to Echo and Ironheart? Well, they came out. A lot of nerds complained about it. They really didn't get any ratings. So are you going to wove that into Doomsday and the continuity, and we're going to see these characters again? What would be the point? If no one watched the show, and it was on Disney Plus, a service that you would have had to see the show, what's the point? What's the point? You're limiting, and this is the problem with the services, you're limiting the potential viewership here. Now, if you had released Ironheart, for instance, on Disney Plus, and you ran the show, and then a month later you ran it on ABC, then maybe. I mean, who knows? It might have picked up an audience on ABC. People watching it on ABC would have went, wow, this is a crazy show. You know? Or at least it would have been out there. At least it would have been seen potentially by millions of people. Probably not, but and I don't see how that hurts your money in terms of subscribers, right? The subscribers get to see it first, and then month, 2 later, yeah, shows up on ABC. They got to see it first. Now it might, I guess they're worried. People go, why am I paying all this subscription to see this terrible show? But they're wondering that anyway. I got to think some people canceled their subscriptions after seeing Ironheart. Like, this is the last straw. Or Echo. But that's not an excuse. I don't care that there was COVID, strikes. I don't care. I don't care. When you have billions of dollars, you can work out of it. You just hire a competent people, and they'll fix it. They've had years to put this stuff out, and this is what they put out. Like, that's a huge factor to me, right? Years. When you have years to do something, and then you put something out, and it's not even good. It's not even competent, in my view. I mean, Ironheart, from what I've seen of it, is so poorly written. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, there are scenes in that show that just don't make sense. Why even have it then? How could you not have fixed that with years? You know? And you're right. They had that on the shelf. They had already shot it twice, I believe, for Ironheart. I believe they reshot that entire show. Or was that Echo? Or was it both? You can't get... You spend all this money and you shoot the show twice. You can't get it right? You can't at least eliminate all the mistakes. Like, there's a difference between a show that's not great but competently produced and a show that's like flies in the face of logic and reason. How did that show fly in the face of logic and reason? And then you waste Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto? Wow. Just doesn't make any sense. That Sacha Baron Cohen was on Ironheart, barely a blip on the radar. If anybody should have his own show, it should have been Mephisto. You could have done like a Tales from the Crypt thing where Mephisto is buying people's souls and had side characters from the Marvel U show up here and there. And then you could see, you know, on news reports and whatnot, the superheroes. Yeah, so I don't give Disney any quarter on that point. They have billions of dollars. Make it work. Make it work. I don't say it would be different if Disney was some small production company out in the Midwest and they're just trying to put a show together. Then I'd be like, well, this is Disney. It's the biggest media company in America. Not the world, I don't think. It might be. You're telling me they can't get a TV show right? It wasn't even that many episodes. What was it, 8? What is it, 8 now? Psh, get it right. Get it right, or at least be competent. At least someone should be able to watch. Even if they don't like the characters and they don't like the show. Somebody should be able to watch Ironheart and go, wow, that show looked amazing. Something. Wow, they had a really, really great lead in that. I mean, the show doesn't make any sense. Like, the Penguin show is an example, right? There's a lot of problems with the Penguin show, I think. But Colin Farrell's amazing in that show. That makeup job is transformative. It's crazy what he looks like on that show. It doesn't even look like him. And you can't deny that. You can't deny the talent of his acting and that makeup. And the set design. Where's that in any of these shows? Nowhere. You're telling me you spent millions of dollars on these shows. Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, so there's no excuse. No excuse for a studio with this kind of money. Number 3, thanks to external factors, they have to soft reboot a character they already introduced in the MCU, slightly break its continuity. Explanation: in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when we see the bad guys starting to invade Earth, we see a theater where they're holding a film festival of Simon Williams movies with tons of posters of these films. James Gunn released the posters later. There was also deleted scenes of these in-universe films playing on the cinema screen. In this case, he was played by Nathan Fillion, who's a good friend of James Gunn, who directed it and was in all 3 of the Guardian films in different roles. This was a good casting and pretty comic accurate, as it does require Nathan Fillion, Bruce Campbell type of actor. I would say even Nathan Fillion is wrong for the role. He's slightly better as Simon Williams, but he's not muscly enough. Again, like, Simon Williams is supposed to be like a bodybuilder. He's jacked. But that being said, again, no excuses. They've got billions of dollars. If you want Nathan Fillion on your set, Disney can make it happen. James Gunn's friend, whatever. That's a Hollywood thing, right? So James Gunn gets them because they're friends and he uses them a lot and they work well together. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in Hollywood, when a new guy comes in, he's like, oh, I want my guy. And that's the way it rolls. But you can't make it roll that way in the MCU and make it consistent. So soft reboot, I'm against it. And again, I don't care. If you're going to spend millions of dollars introducing a character like Ironheart, introducing a character like Echo, keep, obscure characters from the MCU that almost no one cares about, and then you're going to suddenly skimp and say, well, we'll just do a soft reboot and recast this dude. If you're going to do that, recast Captain America and have a Captain America show. You could have done that. You could have done that a long time ago. It would have been huge. New Captain America TV show. You don't have to bother with Wonder Man. Wonder Man is like 9th tier Marvel superhero. Wonder Man would come back into the comics, and again, I read them in the 80s when he was in the Avengers. He came back after, like, the first team was like Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, all the big guys, right? They all leave the Avengers, and they go to second stringers. And it's like Hank Pym, the Wasp, War Machine, Black Knight, a couple others, Hercules, and then some of those guys left. And eventually they did West Coast Avengers, which again would have been the perfect comic for LA to do. Would have been the perfect comic for Disney to do as a movie or TV show. Because number one, you could say, oh, these are the Avengers. They're the new Avengers. And they're on the West Coast. There's still an East Coast Avengers. Maybe you could imply that, even if maybe you could do cameos if they were still around, if you still had some of them left. Or you could just refocus everything in Los Angeles with War Machine, another character they ruined, in my view. Simon Williams, the Wonder Man. You could throw in Tigra if you wanted, or I don't know, Black Knight, Hercules, whoever. You could have thrown these guys in, and that would have been interesting. You would have had the second tiers rolling, but you could still maintain the Marvel Universe and build up the Avengers in a TV show or a movie. Instead, they turned Don Cheadle's character. They revealed he was a Skrull. A female Skrull, I think. But, you know, because they really, I'll tell you the thing they really botched, in my opinion. The Skrulls. They just completely botched it. It probably wasn't even a good idea to introduce as a concept unless they had a really good writing team, and they just don't. It all comes back to writing. I keep saying it all comes back to writing. Like, you put me on this show, I could do 8 episodes of this and make it work. But I don't know, man. This looks the focus on this show looks really, really off. And you can't have characters in the MCU, but we're going to do our own thing within the MCU. That doesn't really work. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an extension. The Marvel Universe is supposed to be an extension of everything. Now, sometimes there are convoluted explanations of how this or that character got into the MCU because they came from different comic book companies or whatever. But overall, it's all supposed to be an extension of the same thing. But in Hollywood, everybody wants to make their bones. So everybody wants to do their own thing. Everybody wants to put nipples on the Batman costume. Because then they could be at a party and say, oh, well, you know, I was the one who put nipples on the Batman costume. Oh, that was you? You know, if it's a hit. So, yeah, again, pay the money. Pay the money. Get Nate Fillion back on the damn set. Now, you don't have to use him for the... I mean, obviously, they didn't want to pay Nathan Fillion to do a 8-episode TV run. But they could have used him for the old Wonder Man. Maybe that's supposed to be the same character. Maybe they finally did a recast because they figured nobody was really paying attention to the background. I think I did see Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and I vaguely remember Simon Williams being mentioned. Again, billions and billions of dollars. They have the money to do it. They just are trying to save money in weird ways. They'll save money that way, but they won't save money by, say, for instance, recasting all the Avengers so they could have them on a TV show or have the actors appear whenever they want in the MCU. Because that's how they did it in the comics. And that's the one thing that Hollywood doesn't get. No, I shouldn't say one thing. That is one of many things they don't understand about comics. Whenever a comic book got into trouble, you could just put Spider-Man in it. This is at Marvel. You could just have Spider-Man appear, and instantly the sales would go up. You could have Captain America come back to the Avengers. Instantly, everybody was back on board. They love Cap. The Hulk. You know, all the big guys. All you had to do was throw them back into a comic that was struggling. You know, there was a running gag for years that Spider-Man always appears in the second issue of any new miniseries. And that was pretty much true. They would launch a miniseries, and in order to give it a boost, I think it was the second or third, you drop Spider-Man in the second or third issue. And that way, if it was a 6-issue miniseries, right, everybody buys number 1, but then there's a big drop-off to number 2. But if you know Spider-Man's coming, you might say, well, let me buy 2, and then I'll get 3, and I'll get my Spider-Man. I bought the first 3. I might as well get the other 3. That was the thinking. If you can't do that in the MCU, you kind of can't do the MCU. You're kind of relying on everything becoming a hit, and that's a bad strategy. That was a strategy that didn't work in comics. right? So, again, Hollywood's following comics down a rat hole. Here was a lesson I tried to teach the guys at, what the hell was that company called? Gen something. It was the guys who started that new company down in Florida. And they had a bunch of stupid titles. A friend of mine worked on it. Not Genesis. Gen something. Anyhow, they launched super big. They had Mark Waid doing a comic. I think they had Chuck Dixon. They had a couple other big names. And they launched all these comics. None of them really did well. They had multimedia stuff. They had stuff on CD. This was like in the early 2000s. And they just launched all these comics. And they also all tied together, right? So the idea was you would read all the comics and then it would all come into a bigger overall story because it was a universe. But that's not how the Marvel and the DC universes emerged. They emerged more organically than that. So, Spider-Man, I think it was like, first they launched the Human Torch, then it was Spider-Man, and then later they were launching other stories apart from each other, and then eventually the characters started meeting. And they decided at some point, okay, this will be a shared universe. So, while Spider-Man's in one part of New York, the Fantastic Four was there too. And that was a big deal when those characters first met in the comics. But it was more organic. There were other characters too. They didn't work out. You never saw them again. Well, they would be in the universe, but you didn't really, like the Inhumans, never really took off. The Eternals. I almost called them the Externals. The Eternals, right? They did a run, didn't really work. They kind of disappeared. They were in the universe, but you never really saw them. You know, when the Beyonder came and the Secret Wars happened, they didn't bother to involve the Eternals in it, even though they were still in the universe. They didn't bother with the Inhumans. They just weren't even there. Somehow they all missed out. So this is the problem with turning the MCU into a movie franchise. You have all these disparate characters. Some are more popular than others. So Wonder Man, you could launch a Wonder Man comic right now at Marvel Comics. I don't think it would sell. You can go back to the 80s when he was popular. I think they did do a Wonder Man miniseries. I don't think it sold. So you're going to launch a TV show based on that? He's just an IP, man. An IP that barely anybody talks about. And unlike the Marvel Comics, where Wonder Man appeared and left and came in and out, so at least we sort of knew him. Nobody knows who, people who just watch the MCU, they don't know who Simon Williams is. Yeah, you may have mentioned him in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I don't think anybody's going to remember that. That wasn't a very good movie in my view. That was the worst. That was one of the worst James Gunn movies. Although I hear Peacemaker finale season 2 is pretty brutal. So, yeah, there's no excuse for this. Either do it or don't. Or make a new guy. Make a brand new guy. You could do that. In which case, why even bother to connect it to the DCU? I don't know. I mean, it's fun to see Ben Kingsley again. He's always good. But the character makes no sense. The guy was a terrorist. How is he walking around? Seems weird. Seems odd. Anyhow, number 4. Then James Gunn went now head the DCU, which may be coming to an end. So goes the rumor. Let me address that just a moment. I did a Hollywoke short take. There's a article on Cosmic Book News. And it's an exclusive, and they say they have insiders that say James Gunn may be out, Mike DeLuca may be in, which I think would be great. The reason is because of the lackluster ratings on Peacemaker, and because, according to Forbes, Superman made no money. I still don't know if that's true. Could it have not made money? Oh, yeah, it's very possible. It's very possible there were a bunch of cost overruns and that the movie actually cost $350 million, in which case, no, it didn't make its money back. If the initial budget is true, $225 million, then yes, it did make its money back, according to the formula. Assuming Hollywood is being honest. Assuming they didn't decide to inflate the budget in order to get a bigger tax write-off on their taxes, and assuming they didn't just decide to do that in order to turn around and get rid of James Gunn, who's a problem for them. I don't know if he's a problem for them. I'm speculating. Any machination is... I wouldn't put any machinations past the studios and the people who work there. I think they're very ruthless. Anyhow, then James Gunn went on to now head the DCU and casted fill-in as Green Lantern Guy Gardner. So now Marvel, who now needs Simon Williams' character, can't use fill-in. They could. I think they could. Because he's double booked. So they have to pivot and shift the character from an established actor to an up-and-coming one, and probably already had the studio action entourage-inspired take first, but were beaten to the punch. I don't know. The whole take just seems... and this is a problem in comics. Once you've saved the country, and then you save the planet, and then you save the universe, and then you save the multiverse since the beginning of time, it's really hard to up the ante. And then it's really hard to step back and say, okay, now we're going to do a small story about an actor struggling in Hollywood. And again, how is that a superhero show? Doesn't seem to be a good idea. There's no punching in the trailer. There's no fights with Simon. The trailer gives you the impression it's going to be like, Ricky Gervais and extras. There's going to be some cameos, and then they're going to talk about Hollywood and the business. I mean, man, they've beaten that stuff to death. Who the hell watching Disney Plus is waiting for that? I don't think a lot of people. Especially if you're a fan of the MCU. 5, the easiest way to get around it is to give Simon Williams a middle name and go by his initials and cause actor unions rules prevent there being two actors with the same name, e.g. Peyton List from Mad Men and Peyton R. List from Cobra Kai. Yeah, I mean, you could do something like that. What I would have done is I would have kept Nathan as the old Simon Williams from the old movie, and then paid him whatever he needed to be paid, and then make this the new one. 6, this version won't be making it past Secret Wars, so it's a moot point either way. They'll just probably recast it with an appropriate actor. In which case, why did they bother to do this? My God. If that's true, I mean, if the character's not making it past Secret Wars, Jesus. Why even do this? What a mess. Who organized this? See, this is, again, part of the problem. It was a problem back in the comic days. Trying to keep all these characters straight. They made mistakes all the time. Now it's like you're trying to do it as a movie and TV franchise. And then you wonder why people aren't watching and the ratings aren't great. Part of the reason, part of the reason people want to see all these little details. That's the cool part. If you can keep the continuity as close, it doesn't have to mirror the comics per se. Simon Williams is a really, really convoluted character. I would have streamlined him even. But that being said, just keep the MCU consistent. I I look back on some of the old movies and what they're doing now, and it just seems so wildly inconsistent. Uh, you know, the tone, everything's so wildly inconsistent. Okay, you finally convinced me. Oh, this is your take? Yeah, I hate that take. Once you have takes that are good, everybody should be doing that. It's just like in the comic book industry, and this is something you should mirror, Disney. In comics, when you had a house art style that people liked, you basically told all the artists, okay, draw like this. Keep it on, what was it called? On model. You want the characters on model. So, for instance, for The Simpsons, they were usually 99% of the time super consistent about that, especially with the comics. Once in a while, they would deviate with like Treehouse of Horror, but other than that, the comic looked exactly like the cartoon. In the MCU, cinematically, you have so many wildly different. I mean, the guys who did the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of the worst shows I've ever seen. I watched the pilot episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was wildly horrific, in my view. Just terrible. Made zero sense. Was boring, stupid, didn't know what. I mean, it really got me out of wanting to watch any of the MCU TV shows. It was so bad to me. Made no sense. Made no sense, didn't understand it at all. That was like right at the beginning of, they were trying to turn everything woke. So, I can't remember the actor's name. I think his last name's Clegg. He was at the New York show this weekend, I guess, or today, this weekend, and said something like, we're really proud of that show and everything we did. F you, because like a fan asked him, like, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. even canon? And look, it's just a show, dude. Back in the day when actors were asked stuff about, like, is this really canon? They would do what William Shatner did in that SNL sketch, where they would just turn the question around and be like, have you ever been with a woman? Who cares? This is just a TV show for children. So, like, that they're defending this, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, which I thought was just the worst, just the absolute worst. Just as bizarre to me. Back in the day, you would meet an actor, he's like, oh yeah, I was on that show, whatever. Oh, now I'm on a different show. Like, they didn't really care all that much about the show. They wouldn't badmouth it. It's smart not to badmouth your show, but to, defend it after you're off the show. And to get mad, and he sounds mad. He said F you, I think. Like, dude, what is even your problem? Why not pull back on that and just say, well, we did what we did. I mean, I'm not in charge of canon. I'm just an actor, and I did the show. I had a lot of fun. Let me tell you a story about working with, the Punisher or whatever. That to me is the proper response. Something nice and friendly. You can keep it light and airy. You don't get bogged down in the canon. The actors aren't in charge of the canon. And then Ham talks about the Batman show, which, let's see. Yeah, the Batman show, which I think probably is worse. The Batman cartoon. And he says, and the Batman cartoon is called Bat Fam. It's Batman as a dad. It says, I mean, Merry Christmas Batman was a weird satire cringe take on Batman that worked as a one-off film, or in this case, two films, but is no way sustainable as a series. Now, was that Merry Christmas Batman? Was that the same guys? I wonder if that's where this show is from. Now I'm remembering that show. Merry Christmas Batman. Is that what it was called? Merry Christmas, Batman. Yeah, I'm not seeing that. Is it Merry Xmas? Try Batman Christmas. Man, nothing's coming up. I don't remember Merry Christmas, Batman. Merry Christmas, Batman. Yeah, I'm not seeing that anywhere. Huh. Let me see if I can find it just on the regular internet. Merry Christmas, Batman. Merry Little Batman. That's what it was called. There it is. Merry Little Batman. Oh, yeah, this looks like the same thing. Okay. Mike Roth. Is he a regular show guy? Yeah, he is. Okay. I knew I recognized that style. So this was, yeah, this was like a movie, and the other thing is a show. Okay. So, Ham says, I mean, Merry Christmas, Batman, Merry Little Batman was a weird satire cringe take on Batman that worked as a one-off film, or in this case, two films. There was another film, but in no way sustainable as a series. Truly, the Velma of Batman franchise, damn near the worst thing the franchise has ever done next to the Caped Crusader, also by Amazon, which they brought back all the team of Batman the Animated Series and let them off the leash, and it was pure garbage, except for the Gentleman Ghost episode, which was good. We already have Batman for Kids right now, and it's called Batwheels, which is basically Pixar's Cars, but with all the Batman's vehicles being sentient and fighting crime. Not my cup of tea, but I like the theme song. Damn, I forgot about Merry Little Batman. I think I looked at that at one point. Yeah, I agree. As a one-off, fine. As a regular show, no. But again, where is the regular Batman show? And yeah, that Caped Crusader was, I heard that was so bad. That's why they sold it to Amazon. Like, Amazon, for some reason, buys up stuff. And I'm not sure why. Maybe because they can use that as, oh, okay, we own this. Then we can bring it back because we own the Caped Crusader. And then we could do our own version of Batman, maybe? I don't know. I don't think they'd be allowed to do that. Let's see. Was there anything else? Okay, that was it. So, yeah, I wanted to get the Ham's comments and say that I agree with much of what you said. I mean, the degradation of Batman, you know, we have in Matt Reeves a decent take on Batman, I think. And I thought the Christopher Nolan one was okay. I didn't like the third movie, but I did like the first two. And I didn't like where he ended it, but there was a rumor that he was going to come back. With the Caped Crusader, what I heard the problem there was they went like super ultra woke. Like, it was woke Batman. But it was so under the radar, I don't think anybody saw it. I don't think any of the nerds even reviewed that show. I think they mentioned it, like the guys on Nerdrotic and Friday Night Tights. And those guys, I don't even think they bothered with it. I think they just went, meh. How hard would it to be? It's so simple, right? The Batman animated series was great. It was just great from beginning to end. And that show was so great, it recreated Harley Quinn in a form that is now insanely popular. Still, it created the cosplay trend. It created basically the Margot Robbie character. That character would not have been in the Suicide Squad movies if it had not been for the wildly popular Harley Quinn on the cartoon and her voice. So that is a rare example of how taking a character from the past and retooling it a little bit can turn into a major IP. But that's the exception, not the rule, in my view. So this show, yeah, it's just silly. And you could say, well, it did well with the movies and whatnot. Yeah, I just, you know what did well? Batman the Animated Series. It did so well they tried to put it on primetime, when TV was still kind of TV. Now you do that show, people would never miss it. People would never miss it. It was classic. Everything about those episodes were classic. You know, it took place in the modern day, but it had a super dark, classic look to everything it did. Everything was super iconic. All the designs were super clean and iconic. There's just no reason not to do that show again. Just none. You could just do it today. You could just say, we want to do another Batman animated series in that exact same style. Maybe you upgrade it a little. Same thing with Batman Beyond. That's another IP that's just sitting there that everybody loves. Batman Beyond was hugely popular for its time. I mean, you know, at that time, cartoons were kind of starting to slide, but, you know, and that added to the legend. It added something. I don't think this really adds anything, because it's just not Batman. You could have just done, you know, a made-up superhero. And a made-up superhero would have been more fun, right? Like the Incredibles. They're made-up superheroes. They're fun. I like them. I would love to see, I don't know why Disney doesn't do an Incredibles series. There's your series. You know, these guys, you could have done another version, you know, basically a guy who was like Batman. Just call him something different. He fights crime in his neighborhood. Maybe it's a little, you could have redesigned the neighborhood. You know, there's so many things it would have been open to. Instead, you just redo Batman again and again and again and again. Again, it doesn't please the Batman fans. The fans of this particular Batman ultimately are going to be disappointed, because ultimately, like you say, it's unsustainable, and ultimately they will go, okay, we squeezed all the money we could out of this. Let's move on. The moment this slips, it's done. If you had created something new, it would have ran its course, and 5-10 years from now, could have brought him back. 5-10 years from now, you could have reinvented him. Put him into the DC universe. Had him meet Batman. Reintroduce him. 5-10 years from now, could have just launched, you know, said, oh, we're going back to that universe and doing the character again. You can do different things with an original character, right? With Batman, you can't age him out and say, okay, Batman's dead now and it's his son taking over to Batman. No, that's not going to happen. I mean, they might do a series where Damian Wayne is Batman. I kind of doubt it. People want to see Bruce Wayne as Batman. Some new character, we don't know what we want to see yet. We don't know if we even want to see that guy. I mean, there's always a risk in doing new characters, but then you have another IP. And even if it's a ripoff of the IP you already have, this essentially is a ripoff of your own IP, isn't it? So if you just made, I don't know, Ratman. And Ratman, same exact characters. He fights an evil clown. You can call him Evil Clown, whatever you call him. Just change all the names. You'd be like, wow, this is a parody of Batman. Super close to Batman. You know, if it hits, fine. If it doesn't, oh well. At least you got an IP. At least you got a new IP out of it. Yeah. So, I just wanted to address Ham's pointed comments. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them. Feel free to write a lot of comments, because sometimes I'll read them on the show. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. Check us out tonight, on the live stream where we do it live, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about this. See ya at 7.